In the warm hills of ancient Israel, where olive trees danced in the wind and sheep dotted the fields like clouds on the ground, there lived a boy named David. He wasn't the strongest in his family, not the tallest or the fastest. In fact, David was the youngest of 8 brothers, and most days, while they trained as soldiers, David was far from the noise of swords and shouts. He spent his time with sheep, gentle creatures who trusted his voice. But David didn't mind. He loved the quiet of the fields. He talked to God under the stars and played songs on his small harp that echoed like silver rivers through the valleys. The animals knew his voice, and they came when he called. Even the breeze seemed to hush when David sang. But being a shepherd wasn't easy. Wild creatures lurked in the shadows. Once, a lion crept in at night, silent as a whisper, its golden eyes gleaming. Another time, a great bear roared through the trees, shaking the earth with every step. But David never ran. His fingers tightened around his sling. He chose a smooth stone from the stream, and he stood his ground. "God is with me," he would whisper, and somehow his heart stayed calm when others might have fled. One evening, after driving the bear away, David sat on a rock and looked up at the endless stars. He didn't feel small. He felt seen, known, protected. One day, a man named Samuel came to visit David's home. Samuel was a prophet, wise, serious, and led by God's voice. Everyone stood a little straighter when he arrived. Everyone expected him to choose one of David's big, strong brothers for something important. One by one, Samuel looked at the brothers. Strong arms, brave faces. But each time, Samuel shook his head. "Not this one," he said. "Not him either." At last, he turned to David, the boy with sheep in his hair, calloused hands, and dirt on his sandals. "This is the one," Samuel said with a warm smile. "God doesn't see like people see. People look at the outside, but God sees the heart, and David's heart is ready." Then Samuel poured oil over David's head, a sign of something special, something royal. David blinked in surprise as the oil trickled down, but inside he felt a light spark to life. David would be king one day, but for now, he still had sheep to watch, songs to sing, and lions to chase away. Far away, trouble was rising. In a wide, dusty valley, 2 armies had gathered, Israel's soldiers on one hill and the Philistines on the other. Between them, a giant stomped back and forth, his voice booming across the valley walls. His name was Goliath. He wore bronze armor that gleamed like fire under the sun. His shield was as big as a door, and his spear was thick as a tree trunk. Each day he roared across the valley. "Send someone, let him fight me if he dares." But no one dared. Not one soldier in Israel moved, not even the king. Goliath was too big, too strong, and far too terrifying. Back in Bethlehem, David's father called him inside. "Take this bread and cheese to your brothers at the battlefield," he said. David packed the food carefully, said goodbye to his sheep, and made the journey through the winding hills, humming softly to himself. When he arrived, he found the Israelite camp filled with murmurs of fear. Soldiers whispered, some sharpened swords with shaking hands, and there stood Goliath, shouting again, daring someone, anyone to face him. David's eyes narrowed. "Why is everyone so afraid?" he asked. A soldier nearby scoffed. "You're just a boy. You wouldn't understand." David stood taller. "I understand more than you think. I faced lions. I fought bears. God kept me safe then. He will now." The soldier just shook his head, but the words spread, buzzing through the camp like bees. Soon, David found himself standing before King Saul himself. "You want to fight Goliath?" the king asked, raising an eyebrow. "You're small, just a boy." David nodded, steady and sure. "But my faith is big, and when God fights with you, size doesn't matter." The king sighed, then ordered his armor to be brought. They placed a heavy bronze helmet on David's head, draped a coat of mail over his shoulders, and strapped a sword to his side. David nearly stumbled under the weight. He shook his head and smiled kindly. I can't move in these. I don't need them." He set the armor aside. "All I need," David said, holding up his worn sling, "is this, and God." David knelt by a nearby stream. He chose 5 smooth stones, cool to the touch, and tucked them into his pouch. Then, with the eyes of 2 armies watching, David walked into the valley. The earth seemed to hold its breath. Goliath laughed, a loud, cruel sound that bounced off the hills. "What is this? You send me a child?" he roared. David kept walking, his heart steady as a drumbeat. "I fight not with sword or spear," he called out, "but in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel." Then David reached into his pouch, pulled out a smooth stone, and placed it carefully in the leather sling. He swung it once, twice, 3 times. The leather cords blurred in the air, and he let it fly. The stone soared like a bird, slicing the air with a whisper. It struck Goliath right between the eyes. The giant froze. Time itself seemed to freeze. Then, with a mighty crash, Goliath toppled to the ground, his armor clanging like thunder. The valley went still. For a moment, no one moved. Then the cheers rose like a great wave. Israel had won. David had done the impossible. With courage, a simple sling, and deep, unshakable faith. From that day on, David became known as the boy who defeated the giant. But even more, he reminded the world of a powerful truth. You don't have to be big to be brave. And when you walk with faith, no giant is too tall. And so ends today's tale, little warriors. But remember, every brave heart has more stories to tell. Keep your eyes wide, your faith strong, and your slings ready, because the next adventure might be just a prayer away. See you soon, mighty giant slayers.